It is March 4th, 2020, and is another edition of the Tip-Off Show here, powered by Wager Talk TV. We thank you for joining us here on this Wednesday afternoon. As usual, I've got my two guys flanked around me. Ralph Michaels, follow him on Twitter, at CalSportsLV. I got Drew Martin hanging out with us as well, at Drew Martin Bets. I'm Jared Smith. Follow me on Twitter, at Jared Lee Smith. And, of course, before we get started, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel at Wager Talk TV, and also check out our homepage, wagertalk.com and sportsmemo.com. Also, a special coupon for today. It is JS49. And that coupon is going to get you 1 week all access to any of the handicappers on our site. And, of course, this is for new customers only, and it's $49 to $70 off the regular price. So a good deal there. Again, that coupon JS49 gives you 1 week access to all the picks for any handicapper on our site. All right, let's kick it around the horn. Fun Wednesday in college hoops planned for you, but also it was an exciting Tuesday. Ralph, I'll start with you. How you doing, bud? How was your night?
Oh, good. Did an 0 for 2 as far as customer plays went, and did one of those where I had 5 plays in the mix and gave out 2 of them that lost, and the 3 that I left off win. But for those that watch that show, Drew and I talk about it often. It's a long season. There's going to be losing days in there. We don't want to blow smoke up people and have them think there's always winning days.
Sure.
To hit 60% means 6 winning days, 4 losing days, and I happen to have one of them yesterday.
Drew, you had a good night last night. That Vandy Bama over, good pick there. Talk about your night and talk about what you're seeing for the landscape last night, as we had some interesting upsets, couple of interesting ones across the board.
Yeah, it was good to see the $2 Tuesday play, and hopefully a bunch of people jumped on it. So always nice to cash those, man. And had a personal wager on it, pretty big there. Went a little bit over my means, but nice to see that sky over there. Lost on Kentucky, outright -8.5. Should have just stuck with just first half, but it is what it is. Hindsight's 2020. Overall, good night, man. Positive night. Live to see another day. So excited to get after today's card with you, fine man.
Yeah, exactly. And Ralph, as we talked about last night, I guess a good place to start is that Vandy-Alabama game, but not with the total. That was one of the biggest upsets. It actually was the biggest upset on the board last night. Vandy, a 12-point dog, and they win it on the road by 8. So an interesting spot there in the SEC. And we also had another SEC upset, Tennessee, on senior night at Rupp Arena, 8.5-point dogs. And, of course, the contrarian dog special, Kelly cashed her bet. I knew she would be betting on it. She was. And it was an outright winner for the Vols. Interesting spot there for Kentucky, maybe a little bit of a letdown spot. And that Vandy-Alabama game was just nuts.
Yeah, a good day for Tennessee basketball with both of the teams pulling the upset. We'll see. Vandy has sparked some life. Tennessee's still alive. You have the SEC tournament being played in Nashville where the Predators play. So, it's not Vandy's home, but, you see these 2 Tennessee teams playing well late, and you think, perhaps they're going to have a little bit of a fight in the SEC tournament.
Yeah, that was a little surprising. Drew, what did you think? Texas, Oklahoma, maybe Shaka Smart's trying to figure things out. Lon Kruger seems pretty good, and Oklahoma's owned this Red River rivalry, but it was Texas as a 7-point dog going in, a late winner there, kind of an exciting finish. As the Big 12, maybe some ripple effects there throughout that conference as Shaka Smart and the Longhorns are heating up.
Yeah, Red River shootout was hardly a shootout, man. Kind of a slower paced game there as they stay under 103. Yeah, something like that.
It's like Virginia Duke score right there.
Exactly. And it's something to keep in mind as we get into March, a little bit slower, a little bit more defensive minded as we get kind of one and done here type of basketball. Overall, played out. And you bring up Shaka Smart, him being able to stay in Austin as they make a run here for a tournament bid. It will be interesting to see what happens. But talking about that Vandy-Alabama upset, very surprising. Tennessee, Kentucky, man. Kentucky just couldn't close them out. Really surprising to me, kind of caught me off guard there and took it on the chin with that one, Jared.
Yeah, Cole Anthony had a big performance, Ralph, against Wake Forest. UNC did cover that number. We briefly touched on that during the Market Mover segment yesterday. UNC went from 6 to 8. They won by 10. Anthony had a big game, 28 points in 38 minutes. UNC obviously is going to miss the tournament this year, but can you see them playing well down the stretch, in the ACC tournament? They've got Duke on Saturday, maybe, kind of playing for pride a little bit as it's really been a down year in Chapel Hill.
I don't. They're not gonna get by Duke with Duke being focused. I think they're one and done, and I think they're they're a team that won't play in any tournament, even if they got asked, just because of, they're too prideful. There is one more game I want to bring up.
Sure.
Not because of yesterday's game meant that much, but when people are starting to look ahead to the tournament, and that's VCU. The Rams are now 1-7 their last 8 games. And for those that know VCU in the Atlantic 10, that is not the VCU you're accustomed to. But a few games ago, back at the UMass game at the end of February, Mike Rhodes talked about having Marcus Evans banged up and Jenkins banged up, 2 starters on his team, which are vital. And he said, I'm going to start playing some young guys. Well, he's done that. But be aware, Evans and Jenkins both should be back for the tournament. So VCU is one of these teams that you're going to see 1-7 or 1-8 going into the Atlantic 10 tournament, but they may be a whole different team when we get to that venue. They, of course, lost at home to Duquesne in overtime last night.
And Ralph, this is why we pay the big bucks, brother, because it moves perfectly right into our movers segment, which is talking all about the A10. And we've got a couple of interesting games on the Atlantic 10 card tonight that I think are definitely worth mentioning. So St. Louis is in the in our nation's capital area tonight. They're in Fairfax County taking on George Mason. The Billikens getting 90% of the action in this game. Ralph, the line's only moved a half a point, and I know when you start seeing 90% of the public is betting a certain side, that's when you always kind of percolate. But we have not seen a lot of movement here. Are you surprised by that?
Yeah, I am. I mean, George Mason's a team that started at 11-1. Well, why did they start 11-1? Well, they played the 340th toughest schedule. There's only 353 teams. So a lot of teams are going to start 11-1. Now they sit at 15-14. So that puts them at 4-13 their last couple games. Their only wins at home were Massachusetts and St. Joe's. Joe's one of the worst teams, and UMass struggled early in the year. So, to me, it's St. Louis that makes sense. St. Louis is still, I believe, looking for a top 4 seed. Duquesne's win last night may have put Duquesne ahead as far as that 4th seed go, but it's so important now when our viewers are handicapping games to know what the motivation is in this game.
Yes.
In a Sun Belt game yesterday, Arkansas Little Rock had nothing to play for. They were on the road. They were a dog. Why were they a dog? Because they had nothing to play for, and it showed. So make sure you're looking at the conference schedules to know what these teams are playing for these last few games, because it makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think that was the point we made yesterday with Kentucky. Kentucky is the number 1 seed in the SEC, regardless of what happens last night, regardless of what happens this weekend. I'm not sure who their last game is, but it doesn't matter. They're going to be the 1 seed in the SEC. So there was a much more motivation for Tennessee last night to get that big upset, and it certainly showed in the second half. You could tell the Wildcats were just a little bit lackadaisical, and I think that is probably the biggest side effect of not really focusing and worrying, okay, are we going to win this game? If we don't, we're out of the tournament type of deal. So that's definitely something to keep in mind when you are looking at this team. The other A10 game. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, bro.
No, my bad. As you brought up that point, Jared, that's an excellent point, because you look at Tennessee. Tennessee played 5 players 30 minutes.
Yep.
And 1 player 17 minutes. So basically, they went with their starters, and Jalen Johnson played 17 minutes. Kentucky had 2, 4, 6, 8 players with double-digit minutes. If the team doesn't care, you're going to let some young kids play, because those young kids may be called up to play in the SEC tournament, or they may be called up to play in March Madness. So when he plays his bench, double-digit minutes in a close game, that's exactly what he wants to see, is those kids in crunch time, what they can do.
Yeah, it's 100% right. Drew, the other game I'm kind of looking at here in the A10, and again, I don't cap the Atlantic 10 that much, but I do have a familiarity with it because of my time working at LaSalle, so I do kind of know what these gyms are like. And the Fordham GW total, so Fordham's on the road. They're at GW. Both teams play at a relatively slow pace. Fordham has been dreadful this season. They're 7-21. I think they've lost 10 in a row. But this total's gone up 5.5 points, from 120 to 125.5, but the money is on the under. 57% of the money's coming in on the under here. So this is one of the biggest reverse line moves you'll probably see all season long in college basketball. Fordham has a bottom 5 offense, or bottom 15 offense, according to KenPom. They're ranked 348 out of 363 teams in offense. Any idea why this total would move so much, yet the money is on the under?
Well, I guess I would start at this by saying, I was actually involved in the Fordham St. Joe's total last time out on the under, and it went over. The pace wasn't really there. I've been searching yesterday and today for little quotes, little changes that Fordham's made in terms of tempo changes. I really haven't found anything. So I'm actually kind of surprised by this total move towards the over. It might just be something, as we get into March here, new bettors and seeing a low total to betting it over. But usually that's not the case. And in terms of, money percentage, I guess I would be on the side of the money percentage, although I usually don't put a lot of that into my handicapping because I'm not so sure those percentage numbers are that accurate.
Yeah, it's interesting. And it's funny that we talk about percentage numbers. I feel like with some of these, you can tell when the percentages are public and when the percentages aren't. And the other game I want to talk about on the market movers is just the Xavier Providence line. But before I do that, I want to give out this code one more time because it is a very good coupon for this week. JS49, and that coupon code right there, it gets you 1 week of all access to any of our handicappers on the site on Wager Talk or Sports Memo, and it's $49 to $70 off the regular price. So that's a good coupon code for you there. JS49 buys you some picks on our site for a week. You can choose any handicapper you'd like, so you can pick and choose, just like we can pick and choose with this next game, Xavier and Providence. Ralph, we talked about this before the show. It's the first game on the board today, besides the conference tournament game in the Mountain West, but it's the first game on the rotational board today. And Xavier and Providence, we're seeing this total up from 129 to 133, and it's a warranted move. I would say 80% of the action's on the over, but you would expect early game, first game up, publicly bet side, it's going to be an over pick here in the Big East.
Yeah, this is one I don't agree with the line move. I mean, Xavier's playing elite defense. Their offense is what has struggled when they haven't played well. Lost to Villanova 55 points, lost to Butler 61 points, lost to Creighton 66 points, Marquette 65, Creighton 65. So when their offense struggles, their defense still plays elite. And Providence down the stretch, 4 straight wins, knocking off Villanova, Seton Hall, Marquette.
Wow.
And Georgetown in the group, and their defense is top 30. So this is one I don't agree with the line move. I actually lean with the under.
Yeah, it's been an interesting Big East season. We've got a Big East game on our top matchups card that we're going to get to in a little bit. Drew, and I feel like Providence is a dangerous team right now, and I was actually surprised to see how big of favorites they were in this game. But I do feel like Xavier can contend with them. But what do you think of this total on the move?
Yeah, I kind of agree with Ralph. Lean towards the under. Not too much conviction, though. Not a game that I'm involved with, Jared.
All right, good stuff. All right, so we'll get to another Big East matchup. We've also got FSU at Notre Dame. Those are the top matchups tonight that we're going to get to and break down in just a minute. But first, Ralph, I know you've got some fun TNA for us on a thick Wednesday night card here on the College Hoops Market.
Well, the Cavaliers, we know they're playing the type of defense that we're getting accustomed to again. And I just want to remind people, when Virginia is on the road and you're not laying an inflated number and they don't have to win by much, one of the best road teams in the country, 37-11. The last 48 road games, they have, they have covered 37 of those, hitting 77%. Here's a system that, yesterday's system crashed and burned, even though it was, a good number. We talked about a 28-3 number. That was a wow number. But again, you're not going to base any game on just a system or a trend. Yesterday's lost. Here's one that's 65%. And it's in March. If a team won as away dog by 15 or more. So that means they covered by over 15 because they were an underdog. They won the game by 15 or more, and now they're on the road this week. 68%. 3 teams fit into that category. St. John's against Butler, Florida International against Louisiana Tech, and then on Friday, Western Michigan fits in that against Central Michigan. Couple more. Air Force is going to get ready to tip off in a minute here. They have failed to cover 12 straight games going into the Mountain West tournament. Tennessee State is 0-11 over-under their last 11 games. Arkansas, 12-1 to the over. Of course, Arkansas with the Musselman from Nevada up-tempo offense. And Virginia Tech, a team that I'm playing against tonight, may make my best bet card. Virginia Tech 1-11 ATS their last 12 games.
Wow, how about that? Okay. That's some good stuff there, Ralph. That's about as thick of a TNA as I've seen from you in a while. So we've got a lot of meat on the bone tonight. Let's go into the top matchups because I think the Big East, we just talked about it with Xavier and Providence, but there's a main course on the Big East card tonight, and it's going down just across the river from me here in New York City at the Rock. At the Prudential Center, and it's Villanova at Seton Hall. It's the primetime game in the Big East, and Seton Hall, both teams actually still have a lot to play for. Both teams have a lot to play for. Seton Hall opened as a 4.5-point favorite. I'm seeing that number go down just a little bit. I do see some 3.5s out there as well. So the action going a little bit towards Villanova. The Wildcats can still finish as high as 2 in the Big East. I think they can share the title with Seton Hall if they win out and Seton Hall loses out. But I don't think a lot of people expect that to happen. Seton Hall has already beaten Villanova on their home court this season. Drew, I'll start with you. Big matchup in the Big East, senior night for Miles Powell, and the Hall certainly want to show that they're the top dog in this Big East conference.
Sure. As would Villanova. I mean, two very efficient teams, both on the offensive and defensive end. Two really good teams, man. Two of the top teams. I think both could find themselves in the Final Four. Villanova coming off that loss to Providence, kind of a surprising loss, slow pace, low scoring loss. It speaks to what they're probably going to try to do tonight against Seton Hall. Now, granted, they are on the road, so who's going to control pace, going to likely dictate the outcome of this game. Seton Hall, it shows in the point spread here, -3 in the hook. The way Villanova knocks down free throws in a competitively priced game, though, I'm not looking to step in front of Villanova, so it's Villanova or pass for me, man.
Yeah, the opening line there on Villanova moved down. So the action was on the dog here, Ralph. Do you agree with the movement there?
Well, just to jump back, if Seton Hall wins, they are the tournament champs.
Yes.
If Seton Hall loses tonight and loses to Creighton, there would be a potential three-way tie. Creighton would win the tiebreaker for the three-way tie and be the number 1 seed. So, I think Seton Hall gets it done tonight. I am not getting to the window in this game. It's the slightest of leans for me. And when you look at Villanova, we're so accustomed to seeing Villanova with multiple seniors in their lineup. This year was unlike any other. This year, they're much more like Duke, having 2 5-star freshmen playing, and leading them into the tournament. The most surprising number for me for Villanova this year is if you look at their offense, they're shooting 44% on the season. In their 14 road games, they're shooting 46%. There's very few teams in the country that are shooting better on the road than they are at home and in neutral settings. Villanova is one of them, and that's what's keeping me off, even though I think Seton Hall gets it done, and I love the way Seton Hall's playing. Drew mentioned the free throw shooting for Villanova, and their shooting percentage, which is better on the road than at home, concerns me as well.
Interesting. Yeah, I think if I had to make a pick in this game, I would take the home team as well. I think Villanova defensively is where I get a little scared off. I've seen them have some pretty rough defensive games this year. And I think they gave up 87 points to Baylor earlier this season. So even in the non-conference against the bigger opponents, they've had some issues, Villanova this season defensively. It's a good Jay Wright team. It's a younger Jay Wright team. They've got Connor Gillespie, who I think is kind of that steady guard. They always seem to have one really good guard. I just think they're a little bit younger and a little bit more inexperienced in these bigger spots. And I think that's where they'll struggle in the tournament as well. Not only the Big East tournament, but the NCAA tournament. I think they have the talent to play with a lot of people. I just don't know if they'll make plays in big spots like previous Villanova teams have done. But take nothing away from Jay Wright, great coach, one of the best in the country. And it'll be a fun game tonight in Newark between Seton Hall and Villanova. All right, another interesting game tonight in South Bend, Indiana, Florida State and Notre Dame. Short line here. Florida State opened as a 2-2. 2.5-point favorite, and we've seen this line go down. The action is tilting towards the home underdog in this game. Notre Dame's had a very average season by their standards. Mike Bray certainly doesn't have as much talent as he's had in years past. Florida State has got plenty of talent. I think they're a 10-deep team. I would lean with Florida State here, but I don't like that the money's moving against me. Drew, I'll start with you. Home dog tonight, or do you like the Noles to get things done as you handicap this game in the ACC?
Well, I mean, I think the money kind of speaks towards. I mean, I guess you're right. It does kind of worry me a little bit sidewise a full point here as we get to the 1.5 mark.
Yeah.
And for the people that have watched this show a while, they know I'm a big FSU guy this year.
Sure.
I mean,
me too. I've got
they're
futures
strong.
on them.
Yeah, they're a very good team. And actually, I think Hamilton gets kind of a bad rap this year, I'm talking. I think he's actually coached them up very well.
Sure.
And it's a little bit hidden in the market. Now, 1.5, this is the one number where I kind of step away from. I'm pretty much only a side and total better. But the 1.5 is the one that gets me to the money line a little bit more, because if it does land on that one, that's a really tough bet to take a loss. So I do lean here towards the FSU minus 120 if you can find it. Most shops minus 125. Just at the pick'em. Now they are having to go on the road. Notre Dame's a solid team themselves. It's just FSU, like you kind of touched on, Jared. I just think the talent, top to bottom. You're right, man. They rotate in. They play good defense. And top to bottom, I think they can go, player to player with almost any team in the nation in terms of talent. So it's FSU for me, man, in South Bend tonight.
Yeah, top 20 adjusted defense in Ken Palm. FSU's deep, and they will run and they will defend you in your grill for 40 minutes. Trent Forrest, a senior, senior night's going to be this weekend for him against Boston College, but playing his final regular season road game tonight against Notre Dame. Ralph, this is an intriguing line for me. Florida State can still win the ACC and get that number 1 seed. Notre Dame, I think, kind of knows that they're on the outside. Maybe they can make a run, but I don't know. I feel like Florida State might actually be the more motivated team, knowing that that the 1 seed is still within their grasp.
Yeah. I'm not sure how much the 1 seed means to them. I just. You look at my power ratings say bet Florida State.
Sure.
But I could not bet Florida State. I go back and I look at their road games since January 15th. So we're talking almost 2 months.
Yeah.
They go to Miami. They should have dominated Miami. What happened? They needed to win in overtime. Losing to Virginia is no big deal. Virginia Tech game was close. They finally won that game by 11. They lose at Duke. They go to NC State, wire to wire. They only win by 6. Then they lose to Clemson. They just, on the road, they just do not have the killer instinct. They do not pull away from teams in the second half. So like I said, this is a game where, your power ratings say take a team, but I just cannot get to the window with that team because of the way they've played, at home. When, if they were in a dog roll, I have no problems backing them in that situation. But, you're off a Clemson loss, and that should fire you up more, but it hasn't fired them up in the past. So this team, I think, just is workmanlike, gets the job done. I don't see the emotion I see out of them, almost like Duke off their win last night. But like Florida State, power ratings say Florida State. Just something doesn't feel right to me where I don't get to the window. And hey, sometimes,
that's all that matters.
Sometimes when you're handicapping, you just have that gut, and the gut may keep you off a game or may put you on a game. But, and no jokes, Jarrett, that I have a bigger gut than most. But, we know that when you're handicapping and you've been doing this for 30 years, there's a lot of times you do trust what your gut says, and it keeps you off a game.
Yeah, I'm not too far behind you there, Ralph. The New York Bagels, they always come calling. All right, best bets time. Drew, I'll start with you. Anything intriguing you tonight on what's I tell you, I was looking through this card. I had trouble picking just one. There was a lot to choose from tonight.
I agree with you, man. That Fordham George Washington game, my numbers say the under. I don't know how I'm going to get there. Air Force Fresno State, early start here, guys, here in Vegas. tournament matchup. Like the under in that one, although that's moved to full 5 points. It's probably that ship has sailed. You know, like you're saying, I kind of like a lot of plays on this card, but I don't really love anything. So I got a couple small bets here. And heck, we were just talking about one that I really like. And, you know, we rarely get to talk about teams kind of south of the Mason-Dixon here. But Florida State, -1.5. I'll move them to the money line if you allow me to. If not, I'm going to have to take the 1.5. So I like FSU here.
I'll allow it. I feel like as a new host, I have to be a gracious host. So I'll take what I can get. Ralph, what do you got for us tonight, brother?
You know, Drew, I just want to go back and bring up another point that you brought up that is so important. You know, I mentioned the VCU, how Coach Evans said he's going to start playing freshmen down. You talked about Fordham. You went to see if there was any quotes as far as a tempo change. Well, you know, as we were talking, I pulled up the Fordham media release for the game. You know, and one of the main notes they have is, you know, over the last 10 games, 65% of their scoring has come from freshmen and sophomores. So he's played his young kids more. He's changed what he's had early. He's looking towards next season. Perhaps he's letting them run a little bit more. But that's so important to not look at season-to-date tempo numbers when you're coming late into the year and coaches are out of it and looking towards next year. It's not what's happened. It's what's currently happening on the court. So great point by you, and just wanted to follow that up with the
Ralph. Good. I mean, I love that you're bringing that up, because it also brings me to one thing I've learned in sports betting is don't only just keep you off of that bet, use that and be proactive and go the other way, man. You know, sometimes just because the season-long stats say, oh, Fordham a 300 team tempo wise, if you know that they're going freshmen, sophomores, like you just said, good quote find there, Ralph. You know, I've learned to just go full board the other way, 360 degrees, and now be betting them over. And we've seen the market go that way.
Yeah, I think that's a great lesson overall with college basketball, because it's a thinner market. Things will move faster, and you might not like your numbers might tell you this is way too high. But because it's a thinner market, sometimes those numbers, I've seen totals get, I mean, and we do the segment, you know, every day, how much a total gets beat by. I mean, we've seen 30-point beats, you know, consistently on that sheet. So don't be afraid if your handicap is telling you that this is the direction that the market is moving, and even though there's been a shift in the number, the market is still undervaluing what you would perceive as the value of the shift. In this case, younger players pushing the tempo, you know, trying to focus on next season and change their style. Then a 120 to 125 isn't that big of a move. That's really just 2.5 buckets throughout the course of the game. Think about how many, you know, shots and possessions a team with a faster tempo will play. So that's a great point. Keep that in mind and use that when you're trying to come to conclusions on some of these contrarian plays. I'm going to go a little contrarian tonight. I like this play in the Big Ten. We're seeing 71% of the action tonight on Indiana. And for some reason, Minnesota just really impressed me the other night. They've had a couple of really tough games back to back. They lost to Maryland. They lost to Wisconsin by a bucket each, 2 points and 1 point. And they're in Bloomington tonight. Indiana hasn't been great this season. It's been an average year for them. Minnesota will have the best player on the court at all times in Daniel Oturu. And I just like the fight that I saw from Minnesota in that game against Wisconsin the other night. I see a 4 here at South Point. I'm going to grab it, and that's going to be my best bet for tonight. A little bit of a contrarian dog. I'll make Kelly happy. But the Big Ten, I do feel like there's a little value with Minnesota tonight. They still know that if they make a run in the Big Ten tournament, crazier things have happened with that conference and how deep it is this year. But they need to win about 6 or 7 games probably. They probably need to win the Big Ten tournament, or at least get to the Big Ten final. But I still like their chances to win out in the regular season. They have Indiana tonight, and they have Nebraska to close on Sunday. So I think they can close the season with 2 straight wins, and hopefully one starts tonight in Bloomington.
Jared, I have a question. I didn't even get the best bet, Jared. Thanks for hosting properly.
You know, did I forget, Ralph? I'm sorry.
I went back to Fordham, but okay, I have a question for you if you don't mind first.
Sure.
Okay. Back in January 15th,
okay,
Minnesota was 10-7. They beat Michigan. They beat Penn State.
Yep.
People thought they were a tournament team.
Yep.
You had a lot of tough losses that Pitino kept trying to get his team off the ground for. I mean, they got knocked out. They got knocked out. They had that Wisconsin game 1 and they lost it.
Yeah.
Okay. Does the record of them being 13-15 and having Indiana and Nebraska where you're Patino and saying, hey, guys, listen, we can win out. We can get to 500. We can still have a non-losing season.
Sure.
Do you factor that in at all? Perhaps a team that clinched a losing season after making the tournament last year and expecting to make the tournament this year?
I think when a team can still get to 500, that has to be part of the equation. You talk about it a lot during college football. After your 7th loss, that next game, when you know you're not going you know you're not going to a bowl game, that's a tough game. That is a tough game to win and get up for. That was a tough loss against Wisconsin, but I still think that I think if he's a good coach, and I do think Richard Pitino is a very good coach. Clearly, it runs in the family. I expect, and I was impressed with how much he had those guys up for the Wisconsin game, and that could be a tough turnaround. I mean, there could be a letdown there where he had them very up for that game against the Golden Gophers, and they didn't win it, or that game against the Badgers, and they didn't win it. And it's going to be tough to get him up again, but the number just feels like it's kind of a little lower than it should be, considering that Minnesota's off that loss, and we're seeing a lot of action coming on Indiana, and the line has not really budged that much at all. I'm only seeing 1-4 in the marketplace right now, and that's at South Point, and that's where I'll get a little bit of value, hopefully, and Minnesota can cover tonight. So yeah, no, I do take it into account. KenPom's got this as a 2-point game, and I think Minnesota can win it outright. Ralph, so I thought you gave out the best bet with the Fordham George Washington game. I'm sorry you didn't.
No, I'm going to go game 809 Rice,
okay.
and this is a game where the CUSA has 14 teams. Only 12 make the tournament. So you have no more motivation than coming down between Rice and Southern Miss tonight, where the loser may not make the conference tournament. Rice coming in positive form, 5-2 their last 7 games. I had them on Saturday. They were a winner. Southern Miss comes in just the opposite, only 2-4 their last 6 games. I think the style of Rice, the way they're playing down the stretch, I really like them in basically a pick'em game, which not only locks up their spot in CUSA, they're a team I have circled once they make the CUSA tournament to pull off a couple wins.
Interesting. And I actually see they're actually underdogs except for CG. So you're going to grab the +1 at South Point, +1 at Cirque. I see a bunch of lines where they're dogs tonight.
I'm with Drew. If there's times that I'll take the money line, but when I'm +1 in a game like this that's going down to the wire, and this is basically a season-ending play, I'm going to take that 1-point game because you're fouling and you don't know what's going to happen. So give me the one, grab the one. There's plenty of value in there. There's times when I have bigger dogs, a 5 or 6 or 7-point dog, where I'll put a little bit on the money line and take the spread. I'll split them, but give me that one all day long in a season elimination game.
Love it. Good stuff. So we got Drew's on Florida State. I'm on Minnesota +4. Drew's got the nose on the money line, and Ralph is taking the penny, a slim line tonight. In Conference USA there with Rice down in Hattiesburg. Fun town, by the way. I've been to Hattiesburg before. Really cool town. Good Cajun food down there in Hattiesburg.
They like to drink their alcohol in Hattiesburg.
I've heard in the South alcohol and drinking can be a thing anytime they're south of the Mason-Dixon line there. All right, good stuff. Now we are done, I promise. That's the tip-off show here, powered by Wager Talk here for Wednesday, March 4th. We thank you for joining us. As always, Ralph Michaels at Cal Sports LV, Drew Martin at Drew Martin Bets. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. I'm Jared Smith, at Jared Lee Smith. Follow me on Twitter as well. Don't forget, also subscribe to our YouTube channel, Wager Talk TV, and visit wagertalk.com and sportsmemo.com for all the latest edges, angles, picks, etc., and of course our analysis of Cajun food in Hattiesburg. Drew, Ralph, good stuff. Good night. I'll see you tomorrow.
Talk to you guys in 23.